Poor girl asks young millionaire to play piano at party. His response is unexpected. Teresa ran a hand through her blonde hair, tied in a tight bun, and looked at Emily for the 10th time in 5 minutes. The 5-year-old girl was sitting on the bed, swinging her little legs and biting her lower lip, a habit that always appeared whenever she got nervous. "Mummy, why can't I leave with you?" Emily asked, her blue eyes shining with unshed tears. "Because today is my first day working for the Whitmore family, honey. It's their son's birthday party, and I have to help in the kitchen." Teresa knelt in front of her daughter. "The babysitter cancelled at the last minute, so you're going to stay here in this room, very quietly. You have your coloring books, your pencils, but I want to be with you." "Emily," Teresa's voice grew firmer, "promise me you'll stay here. This family is very important. If I lose this job—" The girl nodded slowly, but Teresa saw the stubbornness in her daughter's eyes. She knew that look. "I promise, Mommy." Teresa kissed her daughter's forehead and left, closing the door carefully. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway until they faded completely. Emily stood still for exactly 3 minutes. Then, curiosity won out over her promise. The Whitmore mansion was a different world from everything she knew. The hallways seemed endless, with huge paintings on the walls and soft carpets that swallowed the sound of her bare feet. Emily walked slowly, paying attention to every detail. Voices and laughter came from somewhere in the distance. The party. Emily followed the sound like a little mouse following the scent of cheese. When she reached the top of the main staircase, her jaw dropped. The main hall was filled with elegant people. Men in suits and women in sparkling dresses talked in small groups, holding glasses that reflected the light from the giant chandeliers. And there, in the center of it all, was a black grand piano that looked like a sleeping giant. A young blonde man approached the instrument. He must have been about 20, with light green eyes and a smile that made people around him naturally draw closer. He settled his fingers on the keys, and, suddenly, music filled the room. Emily hid behind the balustrade, but she couldn't take her eyes off him. The young man, who could only be Jasper, the birthday boy, played as if he were talking to the piano. His fingers danced across the keys with a naturalness that made the little girl's heart race. The music was beautiful and sad at the same time. Emily closed her eyes and let the melody wash over her. It was different from the simple songs she knew, but it awakened something familiar inside her. When the music ended, applause filled the hall. Jasper stood up, bowed, and smiled at the guests. "Lovely as always, darling," said a woman with platinum blonde hair, who must have been his mother. "Jasper plays divinely," commented someone else. It was at that moment that Emily made a decision that would change everything. She went down a few steps, and before her courage could flee, took a few more steps until she was visible to everyone. "Can I play?" she asked, her voice small but clear. The entire hall turned to look at her. Emily felt dozens of eyes on her, but she didn't back down. "Oh, for heaven's sake," murmured a lady in a blue dress. "Where did this child come from?" "What nerve," said another, shaking her head. "Someone needs to call this girl's parents," commented a man with glasses, clearly annoyed. A few quiet laughs echoed through the room. Emily felt her cheeks turn red, but she stayed right where she was. "Dear, this is not a place for children to play," said Mrs. Whitmore, approaching with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I don't want to play," Emily replied. "I want to play the piano." More laughter, louder this time. Someone whispered "ridiculous" loud enough for Emily to hear. "A child that small can't even reach the pedals properly," laughed a portly man. "She probably doesn't even know where the keys are," added a woman. Jasper, who had been watching everything in silence, approached. Emily looked at him with hope. "Do you really know how to play?" he asked, bending down to be at her level. Emily nodded firmly. "Jasper, this is a serious party," his mother protested. "We can't just let any child—" "Just one song, Mom." He looked at Emily again. "What's your name?" "Emily." "All right, Emily. Let's see what you can do." The murmurs of disapproval grew louder. Emily heard someone say, "This is going to be embarrassing," and another person sigh with impatience. Jasper grabbed a cushion and placed it on the piano bench so Emily could reach the keys. She sat down, ignoring the disdainful looks around her. "What song are you going to play?" Jasper asked gently. Emily didn't answer. She simply placed her small hands on the keys and began. The first note came out soft and clear, then the second and the third. The laughter stopped immediately. Emily played a simple melody, but there was something in the way she did it that cut through the air like a blade. Her small fingers moved with a natural delicacy, as if the piano were an extension of her own body. The music spoke of longing without her needing to say a word. Each note carried a pure emotion, unfiltered, unpretentious. It was impossible not to feel what she felt. The man who had laughed at her was now open-mouthed. The lady in the blue dress had stopped shaking her head. Even Mrs. Whitmore seemed genuinely surprised. Emily wasn't looking at anyone. She was completely lost in the music, as if nothing else existed in the world but her and the piano. Her blue eyes shone with an intensity that didn't match her 5 years of age. When she played the last note, the silence stretched on for long seconds. No one moved, no one breathed. Then the applause began. Timid at first, almost embarrassed, but growing until it filled the entire hall. The same people who had laughed at her now clapped with genuine admiration. "My God," someone whispered. "That was extraordinary," said the man with the glasses, seeming not to believe what he had just seen. Emily got off the bench and looked at Jasper, who was clapping with a huge smile on his face. "How did you learn to play like that?" he asked, still impressed. Before Emily could answer, a voice cut through the air like a whip. "Emily Rose!" Teresa appeared at the entrance of the hall, her face red and her eyes wide with shock. She rushed across the room, weaving through the guests without caring about their stares. "You were supposed to stay where I told you." Teresa pulled Emily away from the piano. "You've gotten me in trouble. Mom, no excuses. We're leaving." "Now?" Teresa grabbed her daughter's hand tightly and started pulling her toward the exit. Emily stumbled, trying to keep up with her mother's hurried steps. "Wait." Jasper took a step forward. "She played beautifully. You don't need to." "I apologize for the inconvenience, sir," Teresa said without looking at him. "It won't happen again." She pulled Emily even faster. The girl looked back one last time and saw Jasper standing by the piano with an expression of confusion and admiration. The applause was still echoing through the hall as they disappeared through the main door, leaving behind a moment that no one there would ever forget. Jasper couldn't sleep properly. Emily's music echoed in his head like a sweet ghost that refused to leave. He had played the piano his whole life, had studied with the best teachers, but he had never felt anything like that. The way she played, so pure, so true, stirred something inside him that he didn't even know existed. He tossed and turned in bed for the 10th time, staring at the ornate ceiling of his room. The thick curtains blocked any outside light, but he knew it was already dawning. He had heard the birds start to sing an hour ago. How could a 5-year-old child play with so much emotion? Where did that technique come from? And most importantly, why did it affect him so much? Jasper had grown up in a world where music was performance, where every note had to be perfect, where the important thing was to impress the audience. But Emily played as if music was breath, natural, necessary, vital. The next morning, he went down for breakfast earlier than usual. The house was quiet, only the distant sound of pots and pans from the kitchen breaking the silence. His parents were still asleep. They never woke up before 10. "Good morning, Mr. Jasper," said Margaret, the head cook, when he appeared at the kitchen door. She was a robust woman with graying hair who had worked for the family for over 15 years. "Good morning, Margaret. Is Teresa here?" Margaret pointed to the backyard. "She arrived early today. She's hanging laundry on the line. Do you want me to call her?" "No need. Thank you." Margaret watched him with curiosity. It was rare for Jasper to seek out the staff, especially so early, but she said nothing, just went back to preparing breakfast. Jasper went out the back door and found Teresa hanging sheets on the clothesline. The garden was cool with the morning dew, and the air smelled of wet grass and flowers. Teresa had her back to him, focused on her work. She saw him approaching and immediately tensed up, her hands trembling slightly as she clipped a pin to the line. "Mr. Jasper," she said, lowering her head. "If this is about yesterday, I offer 1,000 apologies. Emily shouldn't have... It's not that. Jasper held up a hand to interrupt her. Actually, I wanted to talk about exactly that. About Emily. Teresa dropped the sheet she was holding and turned completely to face him. Her blue eyes were filled with worry, and Jasper noticed the dark circles under them. She probably hadn't slept well either. She won't meddle where she doesn't belong anymore, I promise. I'll find someone to stay with her when I'm working. Maybe Mrs. Henderson from next door can... Teresa, you're not understanding. Jasper took a step closer. How does she know how to play like that? The question caught Teresa by surprise. She blinked a few times, as if she wasn't sure she had heard correctly. Sir, how does she know how to play the piano? Jasper repeated, more slowly. A 5-year-old child doesn't play like that by chance. Someone taught her, and I want to know who. Teresa was silent for a long moment, nervously fidgeting with the clothespin in her hand. Jasper waited, giving her time to process the question. Her father, Teresa said at last, her voice almost a whisper. Her father is a musician. Teresa shook her head, and Jasper saw tears forming in her eyes. David was a musician? She swallowed hard and looked up at the sky, as if trying to gather courage. He played piano in bars, at small events. Weddings, birthdays. He didn't earn much, but he loved what he did. He said music was his way of talking to the world. Jasper nodded, encouraging her to continue. When Emily was little, he would spend hours playing for her. A sad smile appeared on Teresa's face. She would sit on his lap trying to reach the keys with her tiny little hands. David said she had a natural talent, that she could feel the music in a way most people can't. Did he teach her formally? It wasn't like that. Teresa shook her head. David didn't believe in traditional lessons. He said you first learn to feel, then you learn the technique. Emily learned by watching, listening, imitating. It was as if she absorbed music from the air. And where is he now? The smile vanished completely. Teresa closed her eyes for a moment before answering. He died, cardiac arrest. Emily was 4. Teresa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. It happened suddenly. He was playing at home. She was next to him as always. One moment to the next, he just stopped. Jasper felt a weight in his chest. Teresa, I'm so sorry. It was over a year ago, but... Teresa sighed deeply. Emily didn't understand at first. She kept asking when Daddy was going to wake up, when they were going to play together again. She would sit at the old piano we had, playing the songs he had taught her, waiting for him to come back. Do you still have the piano? We had to sell it. We needed the money. Teresa's voice grew even quieter. Emily cried for days. It was the only thing left of her father. Since then, she hadn't touched a piano until yesterday. Jasper understood. That's why Emily had been so mesmerized by the piano at the party. It wasn't just curiosity. It was a need. The music is the only thing she has left of him, Teresa continued. It's like, when she plays, he's still there somehow. That's why she plays that way. It's not technique, it's love, it's longing. It's a conversation with someone who is no longer here. That's why she plays with so much emotion. David always said that music isn't about playing the right notes. It's about feeling real things. Emily never learned to read sheet music, never had formal lessons. She just feels. Jasper stood in silence, processing everything he had heard. Suddenly, Emily's performance the night before made so much more sense. It wasn't just natural talent, it was love, transformed into music, longing that became melody. Can I ask a question? Teresa said hesitantly. Of course. Why are you interested in this? Emily is just a child. She gestured vaguely, clearly uncomfortable. Poor child, the housekeeper's daughter. Why would someone like you care? The question was fair, and Jasper thought carefully before answering. Because last night she taught me something about music that I had never learned in all my years of study. He looked Teresa directly in the eyes. I've been playing the piano since I was 4. I've had the best teachers, studied at the best schools, but Emily, she reminded me why I started playing the piano. She reminded me that music is feeling, not performance. Teresa seemed not to know what to say. I would like to see her again, Jasper said. Sir, Emily, I would like to see her play again. He paused. Actually, I'd like to play with her. Teresa turned pale. Mr. Jasper, I don't think that's appropriate. Your mother made it very clear yesterday that... My mother doesn't need to know. Jasper moved closer. Teresa, your daughter has a gift. It would be a crime not to nurture it. I can't risk my job. It's all I have. If I lose this job, and what if I guarantee that won't happen? Teresa studied him for a long moment. Why would you do that? Why would you take a risk for us? Because I recognize something special when I see it. And because... Jasper hesitated, trying to find the right words. Because I have a feeling that Emily can teach me as much as I can teach her. Teresa bit her lip, clearly torn. Jasper could see the conflict in her eyes, the desire to give her daughter opportunities, fighting against the fear of losing stability. Just once, Jasper said gently. Let me play with her just once. If you don't feel comfortable after, I'll never ask again. After a long silence, Teresa slowly nodded. Once. But if your mother finds out... She won't find out. 3 hours later, Emily was sitting on the piano bench in the music room, a smaller, more intimate room than the main hall. Jasper had chosen this space on purpose. It was more private, away from the prying eyes of the other staff, and had better acoustics for musical conversations. Emily was different from the night before. Without the simple little dress she had worn while hiding at the party, she now wore faded jeans and a yellow t-shirt with a butterfly design. Her blonde hair was down, falling in soft curls over her shoulders, and she swung her legs which didn't reach the floor. You're not nervous? Jasper asked, sitting down beside her on the bench. Emily shook her head decisively. Not with a piano. A piano is a friend. The answer made Jasper smile. Did your dad teach you that? Daddy used to say a piano isn't an instrument, it's a conversation. Emily placed her small hands on the keys with reverence. He said that if I listened closely, the piano would tell me secrets. What kind of secrets? Secrets of sad people, happy people, people who are missing someone. Emily looked at Jasper with her bright blue eyes, which seemed too old for her age. Are you missing anything? The question caught Jasper completely off guard. Why do you ask? Because yesterday you played music with longing, longing for a time when music was more enjoyable, when it was more real. Jasper fell silent. The girl's insight was startling. How could she read something so well that he barely admitted to himself? Maybe, he admitted after a moment. And you? What are you missing? My daddy. The answer came simply and directly, without drama, as if it were just a fact of life. But when I play, he feels less far away. How so? When I play the songs he taught me, it's like he's sitting right here beside me, helping me. Emily smiled softly. Sometimes I can even hear him saying, "That's it, Emily. Feel the music first, then let your fingers follow." Jasper's heart ached. Then let's play together. Maybe that way we can both feel less far from the things we miss. Emily smiled, the first true, completely happy smile Jasper had seen from her. Then she began to play. It was the same song from the night before, but now Jasper could hear it properly, without the distractions of the party, without the murmurs of the guests. Each note was placed with care, with intention. There was no rush, no unnecessary technique, just pure, honest, real music. After a few bars, Jasper began to accompany her. He played a simple harmony, letting Emily lead completely. He didn't want to overpower her music, he wanted to dance with it, and then something magical happened. Emily looked at him and smiled, and suddenly they were no longer playing two separate parts. They were creating something new together, something that neither of them could do alone. Jasper followed her rhythm, and she responded to his harmonies, as if they were having a conversation without words. When Emily sped up, he sped up with her. When she softened her touch, he softened his too. They laughed when Emily tried a more complex passage and nearly stumbled on the keys. Jasper helped her, showing her an easier fingering, and she learned it instantly. "You learn very quickly," he said, impressed. "Daddy said I have a musical ear, that I can hear what the music wants to be." Your dad was absolutely right. They continued to play, experimenting with different melodies, Emily always surprised when Jasper could accompany her perfectly, anticipating her changes as if he could read her musical mind. "How do you know what I'm going to play?" she asked at one point, stopping in the middle of a musical phrase. "I don't know. I just listen to what you're feeling and respond." "Is that a piano conversation?" "I think so." Emily let out a musical giggle. "Daddy would have liked you a lot." The words warmed Jasper's heart in a way he hadn't expected. It meant more than any compliment he had ever received. They were so absorbed in the music, so lost in their own world of melodies and harmonies, that they didn't notice the silent figure at the top of the stairs. Mrs. Whitmore had come down to check on something in the study when she heard the sound of the piano coming from the music room. It wasn't unusual. Jasper practiced daily, but there was something different about the music today. Something more joyful, curious. She quietly climbed to a point where she could see inside the room without being seen. What she saw sent an absolute chill down her spine. Her son, the heir to the Whitmore family, was sitting at the piano playing with the housekeeper's daughter as if they were equals. They were laughing together, talking like friends, sharing the piano bench as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Worse still, Jasper looked genuinely happy, happier than she had seen him in years. His eyes shone in a way she hadn't seen since he was a child. Mrs. Whitmore pressed her lips into a thin line, and her light blue eyes hardened like ice. This was unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. It was one thing to tolerate the child playing once at the party. It had been embarrassing, but at least it had ended quickly. But this was different. This was her son fraternizing with the housekeeper's daughter as if she were his peer. And what if someone saw? What if other staff members started to think they could bring their children to play with Jasper? Where would it end? She watched for a few more minutes, her irritation growing with every shared laugh, every moment of musical complicity. When she saw Emily teaching Jasper something, the housekeeper's daughter teaching the Whitmore heir, she had to restrain herself from going down and stopping it all on the spot. Mrs. Whitmore turned and went back up the stairs in silence, her mind already working on how to resolve this situation before it got completely out of control. This had to stop. And it would. In the music room, Jasper and Emily continued to play, completely oblivious to the fact that they had been watched. They were lost in their own universe, where music was a universal language and friendship knew no social barriers. For now, it was just them, the piano, and the memory of a father who had planted a musical seed that was now blossoming in ways he could never have imagined. 2 weeks had passed since their first meeting in the music room, and Jasper found himself looking forward to those moments, like he had never looked forward to anything before. He and Emily had created a quiet routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 in the afternoon, when the house was quietest and his parents were resting, they would meet in the music room. Jasper always arrived first, preparing the room. He would open the curtains to let in the soft afternoon light, adjust the piano bench, and place the cushion Emily used to reach the keys properly. Small rituals that had become precious to him. Emily always appeared punctually, her light footsteps echoing down the hall. She never needed to knock, she simply walked in, as if the space belonged as much to her as it did to him. "Hi, Jasper," she said that Thursday, as she always did, with a smile that lit up her whole face. "Hi, Emily. How was your morning?" "I helped Mom in the kitchen. Margaret let me stir the eggs for the cake." Emily climbed onto the bench and adjusted her cushion. "And you?" "French lesson with Professor Laurent." Jasper made a face. 3 hours of irregular verbs. Emily laughed. "Daddy knew how to speak French. He used to sing French songs to me to help me sleep." It was always like this. Emily spoke of her father naturally, without forced sadness, as if he were a normal part of the conversation. Jasper had learned not to be uncomfortable with these mentions. In fact, he liked them. Through these stories, he was getting to know the man who had taught Emily to see music as something alive. "What French song did he sing?" Jasper asked, sitting down next to her. "Frère Jacques," but he would change the words, make it funny. Emily began to play the simple melody of the children's song, but with small variations that made it special. He used to say that every song can be different if you put your heart into it. Jasper listened in silence, impressed as always with the natural way Emily had of turning even the simplest music into something unique. "Do you want me to teach you a new song today?" he asked when she finished. "Yes," Emily clapped her hands, "but not too hard. My fingers are still small." Jasper smiled. He had learned to choose pieces that challenged Emily without frustrating her. Today he had set aside a Chopin melody, adapted for smaller hands. "It's a song about water," he explained, starting to play the first few bars. The composer wanted to imitate the sound of falling rain. Emily closed her eyes, listening intently. Jasper watched her as he played, seeing how her face transformed as the music flowed. It was as if she could see the raindrops that Chopin had imagined. "Can I try?" she asked when he finished. "Of course. I'll show you slowly." Jasper guided her fingers over the keys, showing her the movement that imitated raindrops. Emily absorbed everything like a sponge, repeating each gesture until she could do it on her own. "Like this?" she asked, playing the passage. "Perfect. Now try to imagine how the rain falls. Sometimes it's heavy, sometimes it's soft." Emily nodded and tried again. This time, she varied the intensity of her touch, making the music really sound like rain, changing its rhythm. "So you have a special gift," Jasper said, genuinely amazed. "You can feel the music before you even learn to play it properly." "Daddy said music lives here," Emily pointed to her chest, "and that the fingers just obey what the heart commands." They continued to practice the Chopin piece for a few more minutes, Emily improving with each attempt. Jasper helped her when necessary, but mostly just watched, fascinated by her ability to learn not through technique, but through feeling. "Jasper," Emily said suddenly, stopping her playing, "can I tell you something?" "Of course." "Sometimes I dream about Daddy." She looked down at the piano keys. "In the dream, he's playing the piano and I'm sitting on his lap like before, and when I wake up I'm sad because it's not real." Jasper felt his heart ache. "Emily, but when I play piano with you, I don't feel sad." She looked at him with her serious blue eyes. "It's like Daddy is happy because I have a friend who likes music like he did." Emily's words touched Jasper in a way he hadn't expected. No one had ever spoken to him like that. So honest, so direct, so true. "Emily, you're my friend too," he said softly. "One of the best friends I've ever had. Even though I'm a kid and you're a grown-up, age doesn't matter when two people truly understand each other." Emily smiled and went back to playing. This time, she chose a song Jasper had never heard before. "This one is new," he observed. "Daddy taught me this one." He said it was a friendship song. Emily played slowly, each note clear and sweet. "He made it up for me when I was sad because I didn't have any friends at school." Jasper listened in silence, memorizing every note. The melody was simple but deeply moving, like everything Emily played. "Can I learn it?" he asked when she finished. "Of course. Then we can play it together." Emily taught the song to Jasper with the patience of an experienced teacher, even though she was only 5. She corrected him gently when he made a mistake, showed him again when he didn't understand, always with the same sweet smile. "No, like this," she said, placing her small hand over his to show the correct movement. "It has to be more gentle." Jasper tried again, this time putting more softness into his touch. "That's it." Emily clapped her hands. "Now it's a real friendship song." They played the song together several times, Jasper playing the harmony while Emily led the melody. It was a perfect moment. Two friends united by music, creating something beautiful together. "Jasper," Emily said when they finished playing, "are you happy?" The question took Jasper by surprise. "Why do you ask?" "Because before we were friends, you always seemed a little sad when you played the piano. Now you seem more bright." Jasper thought about her observation. It was true. Before meeting Emily, playing the piano had become an obligation, something he did because it was expected of him. Now, music had become joy again. "I think so," he admitted. "I think I am happier now." "Me too," Emily said simply. "After Daddy died, I thought I would never enjoy playing the piano with anyone again. But with you it's different." "How is it different?" "With you it's like talking without words, just like Daddy said music should be." They sat in silence for a moment, just looking at the piano keys. Jasper felt a connection with Emily that went beyond age, beyond social differences. It was a connection of souls who understood the same language. "Want to try making up a song?" Emily suggested suddenly. "What do you mean?" "We make it up together. You start, I continue, then you continue again." Jasper smiled. "Let's try." He began with a simple melody, just a few notes that sounded good together. Emily waited for him to finish the musical phrase and then added her own continuation, picking up on the mood of his music and taking it in a slightly different direction. Jasper responded to what she had played, building on her idea. Emily laughed and added a few more notes, creating a small variation that made the music more interesting. They continued like this for several minutes, creating a unique composition that was born in the moment, the fruit of a perfect collaboration between two musical minds that complemented each other. "This is our song," Emily said when they finished, smiling proudly. "Our song," Jasper agreed. "No one else will ever play it exactly the same, because only we know how it was born." It was true. That song was theirs, created in the moment, impossible to reproduce exactly the same. It was the perfect symbol of the friendship they had built, unique, special, unrepeatable. When it was time for Emily to leave, Jasper felt the same pang of sadness he always did. Those 2 hours flew by and he always wanted more time. "See you Tuesday?" Emily asked, as she always did. "See you Tuesday," Jasper confirmed. Emily gave him a quick hug before running off. Jasper sat at the piano for a few more minutes, softly playing the song they had created together. He knew he was experiencing something special, a friendship that went beyond any difference, built on the solid foundation of music and mutual understanding. It was a soul-to-soul friendship, and he wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Mrs. Whitmore had spent 2 weeks observing, 2 weeks noticing the different smiles on Jasper's face, the glances he gave toward the music room, the way he seemed more cheerful on Tuesdays and Thursdays. 2 weeks seeing Teresa looking nervous, always glancing around as if she were hiding something. She wasn't a fool. She knew exactly what was happening. That Monday morning, Mrs. Whitmore made her decision. She put on her most formal navy blue suit, tied her blonde hair in an impeccable bun, and went down to the kitchen with an expression that made all the staff automatically lower their heads. "Teresa," she said, her voice cutting through the air like a blade, "I need to speak with you. Now." Teresa, who was washing dishes at the sink, felt her blood run cold. She knew that tone. She had heard other maids receive the same treatment before being fired. "Yes, ma'am," Teresa murmured, drying her hands on her apron. "In my office." Mrs. Whitmore's office was on the 2nd floor, an elegant room with mahogany furniture and shelves full of books that had probably never been read. It was a room designed to intimidate, and it worked perfectly. Teresa entered and stood in front of the desk, her hands clasped in front of her. Mrs. Whitmore sat behind the massive oak desk, her cold blue eyes studying Teresa like a predator studying its prey. "Sit down," Mrs. Whitmore said, gesturing to the chair in front of the desk. Teresa sat on the edge of the chair, her back straight, trying to appear more confident than she felt. "Teresa, how long have you been working here?" 3 weeks, ma'am." 3 weeks. And in these 3 weeks, you have done good work in the kitchen. Margaret speaks well of you." "Thank you, ma'am. But there is a problem." Mrs. Whitmore leaned forward, resting her elbows on the desk. "A serious problem that needs to be resolved immediately." Teresa swallowed hard. "A problem, ma'am?" "Your daughter." The 2 words fell like stones in Teresa's stomach. She tried to keep her expression neutral, but she knew she had failed. "Emily," Mrs. Whitmore continued, pronouncing the name as if it was something unpleasant. "She has been very present here lately. She stays in the room when I come to work, ma'am. She doesn't bother anyone." "Doesn't bother anyone?" Mrs. Whitmore laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Teresa, I am not blind. I know exactly what has been happening." Teresa felt her heart race. "Ma'am, your daughter has been in the music room with my son." Mrs. Whitmore's voice grew lower, more dangerous, playing the piano, talking, acting as if they were friends. The word friends came out of her mouth as if it were a curse word. "Ma'am, I can explain." "Can you?" Mrs. Whitmore stood up abruptly. Then explain to me how a housekeeper allows her daughter free access to my house. Explain to me how a 5-year-old child thinks she can associate with the heir of the Whitmore family as if they were equals. Teresa opened and closed her mouth, trying to find words that wouldn't get her fired on the spot. Jasper asked her to play with him, Teresa said finally. I told him it wasn't appropriate, but he insisted. I didn't want to disrespect your son. Oh, so it's my son's fault. Mrs. Whitmore's eyes glinted dangerously. Jasper is a kind young man, Teresa. He doesn't understand the implications of what you have been doing, but I do. Implications, ma'am. Mrs. Whitmore walked to the window, looking out at the garden where Emily sometimes played while waiting for Teresa to finish work. Do you know what your place is here, Teresa? She asked without turning around. Yes, ma'am. I work in the kitchen. Exactly. You work in the kitchen. You are a housekeeper. Mrs. Whitmore turned slowly. And housekeepers do not raise children who think they can mix with the family that employs them. Teresa felt tears sting her eyes, but she held them back. She couldn't cry. Not in front of her. My daughter doesn't think anything of the sort, Mum. She is just a child who likes music. A child who needs to learn her place in the world. Mrs. Whitmore returned to her desk. And you need to teach her. What do you want me to do? It's simple. Mrs. Whitmore sat down again, her posture erect and authoritarian. Your daughter does not come here anymore. Never again. Teresa felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. Ma'am, I have no one to leave her with. The babysitter cancelled and that is not my problem. Mrs. Whitmore's voice became sharp. Find a solution. Leave her with a neighbor. Find a daycare. I don't care. But she is not to set foot in this house again. Please, ma'am. Emily did nothing wrong. She just played the piano. She played the piano? Yes, she talked to my son as if they were equals. She acted as if she belonged here. Mrs. Whitmore slammed her hand on the desk. This is unacceptable, Teresa. You are an employee. Your daughter does not belong in this environment. And if you cannot understand that, perhaps you don't belong here either. The threat was clear. Teresa lowered her head. I understand, ma'am. I hope you do. Mrs. Whitmore stood up again. Because I will be very clear. If I see your daughter in this house again, if I find out she has had any contact with Jasper, you will be fired immediately. No references, no notice. Understood? Yes, ma'am. And Teresa? Mrs. Whitmore paused at the door. Don't think you can tell Jasper about this. If he finds out we had this conversation, you're out today. Teresa nodded, unable to speak. Good. Now get back to work and make sure this situation does not repeat itself. Mrs. Whitmore left, leaving Teresa alone in the office. For a long moment, she just sat there trying to process what had happened. Emily couldn't come to the mansion anymore. She couldn't play the piano anymore. She couldn't see Jasper anymore. Teresa knew how much those afternoons meant to Emily. She had seen how excited her daughter got on Tuesdays and Thursdays, how her eyes sparkled when she talked about the new songs Jasper was teaching her. But she also knew she had no choice. She needed that job. It was all they had. The next day, a Tuesday, Emily waited anxiously in the small house where they lived in a working-class neighborhood a few miles from the mansion. Mom, isn't it time? She asked for the third time, looking at the clock on the wall. We're not going today, honey, Teresa said, avoiding her daughter's eyes. Why not? Jasper is waiting. It's new music day. I thought it would be better for you to stay with Mrs. Henderson today. She said she can watch you when I'm at work. Emily frowned. But I want to go with you. I want to play piano with Jasper. Emily. Teresa knelt in front of her daughter, her heart breaking. You can't come with me to work anymore. Why? Because I think it's for the best. Emily studied her mother's face for a long moment. Even though she was small, she could read people's emotions, especially her mother's. Did I do something wrong? She asked, her voice small and worried. No, honey. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why can't I play piano anymore? Teresa closed her eyes, trying to find strength. Because sometimes things change, Emily, and we have to accept it. Emily said nothing more, but Teresa saw the sadness spread across her daughter's little face, like a cloud covering the sun. At the Whitmore mansion, Jasper waited in the music room until 4 o'clock. Emily always arrived promptly at 3, but today she hadn't shown up. He wondered if she was sick, if something had happened. When 4:30 came and Emily still hadn't appeared, Jasper decided to look for Teresa. He found her in the kitchen, helping Margaret prepare dinner. There was something different about her. Her shoulders seemed tense, and she avoided looking at him directly. "Teresa," Jasper said, approaching, "is Emily okay? She didn't show up today." Teresa stopped what she was doing, but didn't turn around. "She's fine, Mr. Jasper, but where is she?" "It's Tuesday. I thought it best to leave her with a neighbor." Teresa finally turned, but her eyes didn't meet his. "I don't want to be a bother anymore." Jasper frowned. "A bother? Teresa, Emily is never a bother. She—" "Mr. Jasper," Teresa interrupted him, her voice firmer than usual. "With all due respect, I think this is for the best. Emily needs to learn to stay with other people." There was something in Teresa's voice that didn't sound true. Jasper knew her well enough to know when she was lying, and she was definitely hiding something. "Teresa, did something happen?" "No, sir. I just thought it would be for the best." Jasper studied her for a long moment. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she avoided his gaze, the nervous way she fiddled with her apron. "Will she come on Thursday?" Teresa hesitated for a moment too long. "No, sir. I don't think so." That night, Jasper lay awake thinking about his conversation with Teresa. Something was wrong. Teresa would never act like this without a strong reason. And the only reason he could imagine, his parents. More specifically, his mother. On Thursday, Emily didn't show up again. Jasper spent the entire afternoon in the music room, playing alone the melodies he had learned with her, feeling the void her absence created. When Friday arrived and Emily still hadn't appeared, Jasper made a decision. He couldn't just accept this. He couldn't let such a special friendship end without even understanding why. He knew exactly what kind of system he lived in. He knew the unwritten rules, the social barriers, the prejudices his family wore like medals of honor. But Emily had taught him that music knew no barriers, that true friendship was too rare to be wasted, and he was not going to stay silent. Not this time. A week had passed since Emily had disappeared from Jasper's life, and each day felt longer than the last. He tried to maintain his normal routine, French lessons, piano practice, formal dinners with his parents, but nothing could fill the void her absence had created. In the music room, the silence was deafening. Jasper would sit at the piano and try to play the melodies they had created together, but they sounded empty, incomplete. It was like trying to have a conversation with himself, technically possible, but utterly meaningless. Teresa continued to work at the mansion, but she was different. Her smiles were forced. She avoided looking directly at Jasper, and there was a sadness in her eyes that she tried to hide but couldn't. Jasper had tried to talk to her a few times, but Teresa always deflected, changing the subject or finding an excuse to get away. It was obvious that something had happened, something she couldn't or wouldn't tell him. On Wednesday morning, Jasper made a decision that had been maturing for days. He could no longer live with this uncertainty. He needed to understand what had happened to Emily, and if Teresa wasn't going to tell him, he would find out on his own. He waited until after lunch when his parents were resting and the house was quiet. Then, discreetly, he slipped out the back door and walked to where Teresa was hanging clothes on the line. "Teresa," he said softly, so as not to startle her. She turned, and Jasper saw that her eyes were red, as if she had been crying recently. "Mr. Jasper," she said, trying to smile. "How do you need something?" "I need you to tell me where Emily lives." The smile vanished from Teresa's face instantly. "Sir, the address, where you live." "Mr. Jasper, I don't think—" "Teresa." Jasper took a step closer, his voice firm but gentle. "Please, just give me the address." Teresa looked around nervously, as if expecting someone to be listening. "I can't, sir. It would be inappropriate." "Inappropriate according to whom?" Teresa didn't answer, but Jasper saw the answer in her eyes. His mother. Obviously, his mother was behind all of this. "Teresa, Emily is my friend. I'm not just going to forget she exists because someone decided our friendship is inconvenient. Sir, please, Don't ask me this. 847 Miller Street, said a voice from behind them. Jasper and Teresa turned. Margaret was standing at the kitchen door, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Margaret," Teresa whispered, horrified. "That girl has a gift," Margaret said, ignoring Teresa's disapproving look. "And gifts shouldn't be wasted because of social nonsense." "Margaret, you don't understand. If Mrs. Whitmore finds out—" "Mrs. Whitmore won't find out," Margaret said firmly, "unless someone tells her." Teresa looked between Margaret and Jasper, clearly torn. 847 Miller Street, Jasper repeated. "Thank you, Margaret." He left before Teresa could protest again. The neighborhood where Emily lived was about 2 miles from the mansion, but it felt like a completely different world. The houses were small and simple, packed close together with small front yards where children played in the street. Jasper had never been in a neighborhood like this. It was clean and tidy, but definitely humble. The people he saw on the streets looked at him with curiosity. His expensive clothes and the way he walked made it obvious he didn't belong there. He found Miller Street without difficulty and walked slowly, looking for number 847. When he finally saw it, his heart ached. Emily was sitting on the sidewalk in front of a small, exposed brick house, wearing the same yellow t-shirt she had worn the first day they played together. She was focused on something on the ground, bent over a small project Jasper couldn't quite see. He approached slowly, not wanting to scare her. As he got closer, he saw what she was doing and felt a lump in his throat. Emily was drawing musical staffs on the ground with twigs, small parallel lines scratched into the dirt, with small pebbles positioned as if they were musical notes. She moved a pebble a few inches and tilted her head, as if listening to the music only she could hear. "Hi, Emily," Jasper said softly. Emily looked up, startled. When she saw who it was, her eyes widened in surprise. "Jasper," she said, getting up quickly, "what are you doing here? I came to see you." He knelt beside the drawing on the ground. "Is this music?" Emily nodded, suddenly shy. "I'm trying to remember the rain song you taught me, but it's hard without a piano." Jasper looked at the little scores made of dirt and twigs and felt something break inside his chest. There was Emily, creating music with the resources she had, because real music had been taken from her. "Emily," he said, looking directly into her blue eyes, "I miss you." Emily looked down. "I miss you too. But Mum said I can't go to your house anymore." "Why?" "She said it's not right for a boss to be friends with the housekeeper's daughter." Emily kicked a small stone. "She said we live in different worlds and I need to understand my place." Jasper felt anger rise in his chest. Not anger at Emily, not at Teresa, but anger at the stupid system that created these absurd barriers. "Emily, look at me," he said. She raised her eyes. "I don't care about that. I don't care if you're the housekeeper's daughter and I'm the boss's son. I don't care about different worlds or social places." Jasper took her small hands. "You are my friend. One of the best people I've ever met. And you're good for me. Really, really, you taught me that music is about feeling, not technique. You taught me that friendship can exist between people of any age. You reminded me why I started playing the piano." Emily smiled for the first time since he had arrived. "But Mum said—" "Your mum is scared," Jasper said gently. "How she's afraid of losing her job, afraid of causing trouble. But that doesn't mean she's right about our friendship." Emily thought for a moment. "What can we do? Do you want to go back to playing piano with me?" "I do," Emily said without hesitation. "More than anything. Then I want you to come back." "But Mom won't let me." "Let me talk to her." Jasper stood up. "Is she home?" "She is." "But Jasper—" Emily held his hand. "What if your mum finds out? Mum said Mrs. Whitmore doesn't like me." Jasper paused. He knew Emily was right. His mother was definitely behind all of this. But that wasn't going to stop him. "Emily, do you remember when we created our song together? The one only we knew how to play?" "I remember." "Do you remember how special it was? How right it felt?" Emily nodded. "Some things in life are too important to be sacrificed for fear." Jasper knelt again. "Our friendship is one of those things. Are you sure?" "I am." Jasper smiled. "Besides, you still have a lot to teach me about music." Emily laughed. And you have a lot to teach me too. So we're in agreement. We are. Jasper looked at the house behind Emily. Can I talk to your mum? Emily hesitated. She's been very sad lately. I think she misses our music sessions too. Why do you think that? Because every Tuesday and Thursday she looks at the clock at the time we used to play together, and sometimes I hear her humming the songs you taught me. This confirmed what Jasper suspected. Teresa hadn't taken Emily from the mansion because she wanted to. She had done it because she had been forced to. Emily, did your mum tell you exactly what happened? Emily shook her head. She just said she thought it was better if I didn't go anymore. But I saw her crying in the bathroom afterward. Jasper felt his chest tighten even more. Teresa was suffering as much as Emily, but she had no choice, or at least she thought she didn't. I'll talk to her, Jasper said, determined, and I'll make everything right. Promise, I promise. Emily smiled and gave Jasper a quick hug. I knew you would come looking for me. How did you know? Because real friends don't give up on each other. Jasper smiled. Another lesson Emily had taught him, without even realizing it. They walked to the door of the house together. Emily a little nervous, Jasper determined. He knew the conversation with Teresa wouldn't be easy, but he also knew he couldn't give up. Emily deserved music. She deserved friendship. She deserved to have her talents recognized and developed. And he wasn't going to let stupid prejudices stop that from happening. No matter what it cost. Jasper's conversation with Teresa lasted almost an hour. He found a broken, fearful woman who still loved her daughter above all else. Teresa had been reluctant, explained the risks, and cried when she recounted Mrs. Whitmore's threat. But when Jasper explained how much Emily meant to him, promised he would find a way to protect her job, and showed he was willing to confront his own family for their friendship, Teresa finally gave in. 1 week, she said, tears streaming down her thin face. If anything goes wrong in 1 week, Emily doesn't come back. And you promise you won't tell anyone about our conversation. I promise, Jasper said, knowing he was making a promise he might not be able to keep. And you promise that if your mother finds out, you won't let her harm us further. Teresa, I will protect you both. From anything. The woman studied him for a long moment, seeing something in the young man's green eyes that convinced her he was serious. All right, but we have to be even more careful now. The following Thursday, Emily was back in the music room. She entered slowly, almost fearfully, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment to send her away again. Her blue eyes scanned the room, checking every corner, every shadow. You don't have to be afraid, Jasper said gently, noticing her hesitation. Everything's okay. Are you sure? Emily asked, her voice small. Mum said that if anyone sees us together again. Emily, look at me. She lifted her eyes. I won't let anything happen to you or your mum. I promise. Emily studied his face, searching for signs of doubt but finding only sincerity. Okay, she said, finally smiling. I trust you. Emily approached the piano like someone approaching a dear friend after a long separation. She placed her small hands on the keys and sighed deeply, as if breathing for the first time in weeks. I miss this so much, she murmured, stroking the keys with reverence. Me too, more than you know. They started by playing the rain song that Emily had tried to recreate with twigs. This time, she remembered every note perfectly, as if the time away from the piano had only intensified her musical memory. But there was something different in her touch. You've gotten better, Jasper observed, genuinely surprised. A lot better. How could I have gotten better if I haven't played the piano in 2 weeks? I don't know. But you have. There's something different in your touch. More profound. Emily thought for a moment, her eyebrows furrowed in concentration. I think it's because now I know what it's like to be without music, so every note feels more important. The observation struck Jasper like lightning. That was exactly it. Emily now played with an urgency, a gratitude that didn't exist before. Every musical moment was treated as a precious gift that could be taken away at any time. It's as if music has become more necessary for you, he said. Yes, Emily brightened. In the 2 weeks without playing, I felt like a part of me was missing, like I couldn't breathe properly. And now I'm whole again. They spent the entire afternoon playing. Emily showed Jasper how she had practiced mentally during the 2 weeks away, imagining the melodies and moving her fingers in the air. She had created exercises with pieces of wood at home, simulating keys to maintain her coordination. Jasper was fascinated by her ability to keep the music alive even without an instrument. "You're incredible, Emily. Do you know any adult who would have that discipline?" "Daddy always said that real music lives here." Emily pointed to her heart, "not in the fingers. So even without a piano, the music kept growing inside me." "Growing how?" "Getting stronger, clearer. It's hard to explain." Emily tried to find the words. "It's like, without being able to play, I learned to listen better." "Want to try a new song?" Jasper asked when they finished playing all the melodies Emily had memorized. "Yes, which one?" "A song about friendship, but not like the one your dad made up. A different one." Jasper began to play a melody he had composed during the 2 weeks Emily was absent. It was a song that spoke of connections that transcended barriers, about finding someone who understood your soul, about fighting to keep those connections even when the world tried to tear them apart. Emily listened in silence, absorbing every note, every harmonic change. When Jasper finished, she had tears in her eyes. "Is it about us?" she asked, her voice emotional. "It's about us, about our friendship, about how sometimes we have to fight for the things that are important. It's the most beautiful song I've ever heard. Can I learn it? Of course, but it's a little harder than the others. It doesn't matter. I want to learn it. I want to play our song." Jasper began to teach the song to Emily, note by note. She was right about having improved. Her ability to absorb new music was sharper, as if the time away had heightened all her musical senses. "You're learning faster than before," Jasper observed, impressed. "It's because this song is special. It's our story." As they played, lost in their musical creation, neither of them noticed the silent figure in the hallway. Mrs. Whitmore had come down to get a book from the library when she heard the sound of the piano from the music room. At first, she thought it was just Jasper practicing his daily routine, but there was something about the music that made her stop. 2 pianos, 4 hands, and one of the melodies was played with the light touch characteristic of a child. Emily was back. Mrs. Whitmore felt a cold anger rise in her chest. She had made her instructions very clear to Teresa, very clear. She had made specific threats, and yet, somehow, the girl was here again. This meant that Teresa had deliberately disobeyed her orders. Worse yet, it likely meant that Jasper was involved in the decision. She positioned herself where she could see inside the room without being seen. What she saw confirmed her worst fears. Jasper and Emily were sitting side by side on the piano bench, playing together as if they were equals. Worse than that, Jasper seemed to be teaching her a new song, with the patience and care one would dedicate to a special student, to an equal. Mrs. Whitmore observed the way her son looked at Emily, the way he smiled when she got a difficult passage right, the way he treated her with a respect and affection she had never seen him show for any of his high society peers. Worse still, she saw how Emily responded. The girl did not act like a servant in the presence of an employer. She laughed naturally, made musical suggestions, and gently corrected Jasper when he made a mistake. She behaved like an equal. This wasn't just a child playing the piano. This was a friendship, a real, deep friendship that clearly meant a lot to Jasper, and that realization made her even more furious. It was one thing to tolerate Emily's first performance at the party as an isolated incident, a passing curiosity. She had tried to resolve the situation discreetly by speaking with Teresa, but this was different. This was her son becoming attached to someone completely inappropriate, someone who could influence him in ways she couldn't control, someone who was already causing him to question the social rules she had spent 20 years trying to teach him. She watched for a few more minutes, her indignation growing with every shared laugh, every moment of musical complicity. When she saw Emily teaching Jasper something, the housekeeper's daughter teaching the Whitmore heir, correcting his technique as if she had the authority to do so, she almost intervened right then and there. But no, this needed to be resolved definitively and permanently. Mrs. Whitmore turned and went up the stairs in silence, her mind already formulating a plan. Teresa had disobeyed her direct orders. She had allowed her daughter to return after being clearly instructed to keep her away. This could not be tolerated. Never again. Furthermore, it was clear that Jasper was involved. He had probably convinced Teresa to bring Emily back. This meant he was actively working against the family's decisions. This had to stop, immediately. In the music room, Jasper and Emily continued to play until the end of the afternoon, completely oblivious to the fact they had been observed. When it was time for Emily to leave, they were both beaming. "Thursday again?" Emily asked, as she always did. "Thursday," Jasper confirmed, smiling. "And until then, practice the new song in your head. I'll practice every day." Emily ran off to find her mother, who was waiting nervously for her in the kitchen. Teresa had spent the entire afternoon on edge, afraid that at any moment someone would show up to send them away. Jasper stayed a few more minutes in the music room, gently playing the melody they had created together. He was perfectly happy in that moment, planning the next songs he would teach Emily, thinking about how their friendship was developing. He didn't know it would be the last time Emily would play the piano in that room. The next morning, Jasper woke up late, as he always did on Fridays. He went down for breakfast around 10, humming the melody he had composed for Emily, expecting to find the house in its normal routine. But there was something different in the air, a tension he couldn't identify. Margaret was in the kitchen alone, preparing coffee with a grim expression Jasper had never seen before. Her movements were more abrupt than usual, and she avoided looking directly at him. "Good morning, Margaret," he said, pouring himself some orange juice. "Where's Teresa?" Margaret stopped what she was doing and turned slowly. Jasper saw something in her eyes that made his stomach drop. "Mr. Jasper, Teresa doesn't work here anymore." The glass almost slipped from Jasper's hand. "What do you mean? She was fired last night." "Fired?" Jasper felt his stomach sink. "Why? What happened?" Margaret looked around nervously, as if expecting someone to be listening. "So I think you'd better talk to your mother about this. Margaret, tell me what happened, please." "I can't, Mr. Jasper, but..." She hesitated. "It was right after you two finished playing yesterday." Jasper's world collapsed. They had been discovered. Jasper ran out of the kitchen and found his mother in the living room, sipping tea and reading a newspaper as if nothing had happened. She was impeccably dressed and made up, a picture of calm that contrasted violently with the storm Jasper felt growing inside him. "Mother," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. Margaret said, "Teresa was fired." Mrs. Whitmore didn't look up from the newspaper. She was Chahamawai, because she wasn't following the house rules. "What rules? Teresa is an excellent employee. Margaret always praises her work. She's never done anything wrong." Mrs. Whitmore finally lowered the newspaper and looked at Jasper with her cold blue eyes. "Jasper, Teresa was clearly instructed about certain limitations. She chose to ignore those instructions." Jasper felt a familiar anger rise in his chest. "This is about Emily." "It is." "Mother, Emily is just a child. Emily is the daughter of a housekeeper who doesn't know her place." Mrs. Whitmore carefully set the newspaper aside. "And you seem to have forgotten yours as well." "My place?" "Jasper, you are a Whitmore. You have responsibilities, expectations. You can't just be mingling with anyone." "Emily isn't just anyone." Jasper's voice came out louder than he intended. "She's talented, intelligent, kind. She's a housekeeper's daughter. So what, Mrs. Whitmore stood up abruptly, her composure finally cracking. "So what? Jasper, don't you understand the implications of what was happening? Yesterday you were teaching her piano as if she were your equal, as if she had the right to be there. She has the right to be wherever she wants." "She does not." Mrs. Whitmore's voice rose in pitch. "Jasper, don't you see where this leads? Yesterday she was playing the piano. Soon she'd be sitting at our table, going to the pool, being treated as part of the family. Where would it end? We would have no control left. I see no problem with that." "No problem," Mrs. Whitmore laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Jasper, we cannot allow employees to think they can raise their children as our equals. If we do that, we lose all control. Our social standing, our authority, everything would crumble. Jasper looked at his mother as if he were seeing her for the first time. You're talking about a 5-year-old child. I'm talking about principles, about social order, about keeping everyone in their proper place. Not her proper place. Jasper's anger finally exploded. Mother, you don't understand anything. Emily is my friend, a real friend. She is talented, has a rare and special musical gift. She is a sweet, intelligent child who has never harmed anyone. Jasper, no. He stood up as well. Thus you fired Teresa because you can't stand the idea of your son being friends with someone you consider inferior. You destroyed the lives of 2 people because of your stupid prejudice. Do not speak to me in that tone. I'll speak in any tone I want. Jasper was shaking with rage. Emily has taught me more about music, about friendship, about being a decent person in a few weeks than our entire society has taught me in 20 years. Mrs. Whitmore turned pale. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. Jasper headed for the door. And I know exactly what I'm going to do. Where are you going? I'm going after them. I'm going to apologize for belonging to a family that treats good people like disposable trash. Jasper, if you leave this house now... What? Jasper turned at the door. Are you going to disinherit me? Kick me out too? Do what you want, Mother. But I won't stand here pretending I agree with this. He slammed the door, leaving Mrs. Whitmore alone in the room, trembling with anger and shock. Jasper hadn't been lying. He knew exactly what he was going to do. He was going to find Emily and Teresa. He was going to apologize, and he was going to find a way to fix the damage his family had caused, because some things were too important to be sacrificed for prejudice and pride. And his friendship with Emily was definitely one of them. Jasper walked through the streets of the working-class neighborhood with a mixture of determination and nervousness growing in his chest. The path to Emily's house seemed longer this time, each step burdened by the weight of the guilt he felt. His words to his mother still echoed in his mind, but now they seemed empty in the face of what had happened. He had promised to protect Emily and Teresa. He had promised that nothing bad would happen to them, and he had failed completely. Miller Street was busier than the first time. Children played in the street, women chatted on their doorsteps, men returned from work with tired but smiling faces. It was a different world from the one he knew, simpler, more genuine, where people greeted each other by name. When he reached number 847, Jasper paused for a moment, looking at the small brick house. Something was different now. The curtains were drawn. There were no flowers in the windows as he had seen before, and the small front garden looked neglected. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Footsteps approached, hesitant. Jasper heard Teresa ask, "Who is it?" through the closed door. Teresa, "It's Jasper." There was a long silence. Then, slowly, the door opened. Teresa appeared in the crack, her blue eyes red and swollen, as if she had been crying for hours. When she saw Jasper, her expression turned into a mixture of surprise, embarrassment, and something that looked like fear. "Mr. Jasper," she said, her voice hoarse, "what are you doing here? Can I come in? I need to talk to you." Teresa hesitated, looking back as if checking on something. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Please, Teresa, just a few minutes." After a moment that felt like an eternity, Teresa opened the door completely and gestured for him to enter. The house was small but tidy, with simple, clean furniture. The walls were decorated with drawings that Emily had clearly made, small works of children's art, depicting pianos, musical notes, and figures that seemed to be her and her father playing together. Emily was sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by coloring books and pencils, but she wasn't coloring. She was just staring at the blank pages, with an empty expression that broke Jasper's heart. When she saw him, her eyes lit up for an instant, but the light quickly faded again. "Hi, Jasper," she said softly. "Hi, Emily." Teresa gestured to the small sofa. "Please, sit down." Jasper sat, and Teresa took the chair opposite, keeping her distance. Emily remained on the floor, but Jasper noticed she was paying attention to every word. "Teresa," Jasper began, his voice thick with emotion, I'm so sorry. Sir, I'm so sorry for what happened. My mother doesn't see things the way I do. I should have protected you. Teresa looked down. You couldn't have known that she... Yes, I could have. Jasper leaned forward. I knew my mother didn't approve of our friendship. I knew she was prejudiced. I should have been more careful. I should have found a way to keep you safe. Mr. Jasper, with all due respect, it's not your responsibility to protect us. But it is. Jasper's voice grew firmer. Emily is my friend, and friends protect each other. Teresa looked at him for a long moment, her eyes welling up. I appreciate your words, sir. I really do. But I think it's best we stay away. We've already lost the job. I just want to protect my daughter. Protect her from what? From more disappointments. From getting attached to things she can't have. Teresa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Emily spent all last night asking when you two would play the piano again. I had to explain that it's not going to happen anymore. From the floor, Emily looked up. Mom said people like us can't be friends with people like you. Emily's words hit Jasper like a punch to the gut. Emily, that's not true. It's not. The girl stood up and walked over to where he was sitting. Then why can't I play piano with you anymore? Jasper looked between Emily and Teresa, searching for the right words. Because some grown-ups think there are silly rules about who can be friends with whom, but those rules are wrong. Then why do we have to follow them? Emily's simple question contained a profound truth that Jasper didn't know how to explain. How could he explain to a 5-year-old that the world was unfair? That there were people who judged others by the money they had or the job they did? Emily, Teresa called gently, go play in your room for a little bit. I need to talk to Mr. Jasper. Emily hesitated but obeyed. Jasper watched her leave the room with her shoulders slumped, as if carrying a weight too heavy for her age. When they were alone, Teresa stood up and walked to the window. Mr. Jasper, I understand your intentions. I know you like Emily and that she likes you. But look around. Jasper looked at the simple room, at the old but well-kept furniture, at Emily's drawings on the walls. This is our reality, Teresa continued. Emily will have to learn to live in this world, not yours. And the more she gets attached to things she can't have, the more she will suffer. But she can have them, Teresa. Emily has talent. She has a gift that is useless if she doesn't have opportunities. Teresa turned to him. Mr. Jasper, I don't have money to pay for piano lessons for Emily. I can barely afford food and rent. And now, without a job. Her voice broke, and Jasper saw tears begin to stream down her face. I'll find another job, Teresa said, trying to compose herself. But in the meantime, Emily will have to understand that music is just a beautiful dream, not a possible reality for her. Jasper stood up abruptly. No, that's not right. It may not be right, but it's the truth. Teresa, give me 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere, don't make any decisions. Wait for me here. Teresa looked at him, confused. Sir, just wait for me, please. Jasper left the house almost at a run, leaving Teresa completely bewildered in the living room. He had an idea that had formed in his mind during the conversation, growing until it became an absolute certainty. He couldn't change the way his mother thought. He couldn't undo what had happened, but he could do something concrete to help. Jasper walked quickly until he found a payphone and called his personal bank. He had his own account since he was 18, fed by a generous allowance and investments his father had made in his name. He had never used the money for anything important, just frivolous expenses that now seemed meaningless. I want to set up a fund, he told the manager, an educational fund in the name of Emily Rose. I need it to cover private school, music lessons, transportation, school supplies, everything she needs. The manager asked several questions about amounts and timelines. Jasper answered them all without hesitation. He wanted the fund to be generous enough to cover everything Emily would need until she turned 18, including university, if she wanted it. I also want to set up a separate fund for her mother, Teresa Rose, Jasper added. A monthly amount that will ensure they have financial stability. When he finished the calls, Jasper felt lighter than he had in days. He was finally doing something concrete, something that would make a real difference in Emily's life. He returned to the house almost at a run. Teresa opened the door with a worried expression. "I thought you weren't coming back. I promised I would." Jasper entered the room where Emily was sitting again, but now just staring into space. "May I sit?" Teresa nodded, and they sat as before. "Teresa, I have a proposal for you." "Sir?" "I've set up an educational fund in Emily's name." Jasper spoke slowly, wanting every word to be understood. "It will cover private school, piano lessons, transportation, school supplies, everything she needs." Teresa turned pale. "Mr. Jasper, I can't accept charity." "It's not charity." Jasper leaned forward. "Teresa, Emily is a very special girl. This isn't out of pity or guilt. It's for everything she is. Her company is good for me. She taught me important things about music, about friendship, about being a better person. I want to ensure the best for her. But, let me finish." Jasper raised his hand gently. "I've also set up a fund for you, a monthly amount that will ensure you have financial stability. You can look for work without desperation. You can choose something you really want to do." Teresa was trembling. "Mr. Jasper, this is very generous, but I can't accept it. It's too much money." "Teresa, look at me." She raised her tear-filled eyes. "I have a lot of money, more than I know what to do with. I spent more on clothes last month than you two see in a year." Jasper took her hands. "Let me use this money for something that really matters." "But why? Why would you do this for us?" Jasper looked at Emily, who was listening to everything with wide eyes. "Because Emily has a gift, a real, rare, special gift. It would be a crime to let that gift go to waste for lack of opportunities." He turned back to Teresa. "And because you two showed me what true friendship is, that is priceless." Teresa began to cry, not tears of sadness, but tears of relief, of gratitude, of renewed hope. "Mr. Jasper, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll accept. Say you'll let Emily have the opportunities she deserves." Emily got up from the floor and walked to Jasper. Without a word, she hugged him with all the strength her small arms could muster. "Does this mean I can play the piano again?" she asked against his chest. "It means you're going to have your own piano," Jasper said, hugging her back. "And teachers, and all the lessons you want." Emily pulled away to look at him. "And will we still be friends?" "Forever," Jasper promised. "If you want to be. I want to." Teresa stood up and joined the hug, crying and laughing at the same time. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for believing in my daughter." "Thank you for letting me know her," Jasper replied. They stood like that for a long moment. Three people from different worlds united by something stronger than prejudice, more enduring than social differences. When they finally separated, there was hope in the air. Emily was smiling for the first time in days. Teresa looked 10 years younger, and Jasper felt he had finally done something truly important with his life. "When can I start my lessons?" Emily asked, her eyes shining with excitement. "Tomorrow, if you like," Jasper laughed. "But first, how about we play a little together? I brought sheet music for a new song I think you'll like." Emily clapped her hands, and for the first time since everything had fallen apart, the future looked bright again. Hope had returned to stay. 6 months had passed since that afternoon in the small house on Miller Street. Emily was now studying at one of the best schools in the city, had piano lessons 3 times a week, and owned a small piano at home, a gift from Jasper for her 6th birthday. The Whitmore mansion was once again decorated for a party. This time, it was a New Year's celebration, a formal event that brought together the city's elite. Chandeliers sparkled, expensive flowers adorned every corner, and waiters circulated with trays among the elegantly dressed guests. Jasper stood at the entrance of the ballroom, nervous, constantly looking at the main door. He had sent special invitations to Emily and Teresa, but he didn't know if they would come. Mrs. Whitmore circulated among the guests with her perfect social smile, but Jasper noticed the tension in her shoulders. The last few months had been a silent truce between them. Then, at 8:30 in the evening, they arrived. Emily entered hand in hand with Teresa, wearing a light blue dress that Jasper had made especially for her. Her blonde hair was tied in a delicate hairstyle, and she walked with the confidence she had developed over the last few months. Teresa was elegant in a simple black dress, but her eyes showed nervousness. She knew this night would be crucial. As they entered the ballroom, the conversation subsided. Heads turned, curious eyes followed them. Some guests whispered among themselves, clearly wondering who these people were. Jasper approached immediately, smiling. "You came?" he said, relieved. "We promised we would," Emily replied, giving a small curtsy as Teresa had taught her. "You look beautiful, Emily." They circulated through the ballroom, Jasper introducing Emily and Teresa as his special friends. The reactions varied. Some guests were cordial, others maintained a cold politeness, and some seemed clearly uncomfortable. Emily behaved perfectly, greeting people politely but without losing her childlike naturalness. She talked about her piano lessons when asked, always mentioning how much she loved music. Mrs. Whitmore watched from a distance, her expression unreadable. Jasper noticed how she followed Emily's every move, every reaction from the guests. As the night progressed, Emily gradually won over some people. Her genuineness and intelligence were impossible to ignore, and even some of the most skeptical guests began to talk to her naturally. When the party was nearing its end, Jasper walked to the grand piano in the center of the ballroom. He gently tapped a glass to get everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice echoing through the hall, "if you'll allow me, I'd like to end this evening in a special way." The conversations stopped completely. All eyes turned to him. "I want to share the piano with someone who has changed the way I see the world," Jasper continued, extending his hand toward Emily. Emily walked toward him with firm steps, without hesitation. She climbed onto the piano bench as if it were her natural place. The ballroom fell completely silent. 200 people waited. Emily began to play. It was the song Jasper had composed for her months ago, the song about friendship. But Emily had added her own variations, making it even richer and more expressive. Her small hands moved across the keys with confidence. Months of formal study had honed her technique, but her musical essence remained untouched, pure, honest, deeply emotional. After a few bars, Jasper joined her. But this time, he let Emily lead completely, following her interpretation, admiring the way she transformed each note into something special. Emily led with her heart, as always, but now there was something more. There was gratitude for the opportunity, determination to prove her worth, and a love for music that had deepened. The music spoke of journeys, of finding one's place in the world, of people who believe in you. It was autobiographical without being dramatic, powerful without being pretentious. When they reached the end, Emily and Jasper played the final notes in perfect synchrony. The silence that followed lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then the ballroom erupted in emotional applause. It wasn't polite or obligatory applause, it was genuine applause, from people who had been truly touched by the music. Some people had tears in their eyes, others were giving a standing ovation. Emily got off the bench and curtsied, smiling radiantly. Jasper stood beside her, applauding her performance along with everyone else. On the other side of the ballroom, Mrs. Whitmore watched everything in silence. For the first time in months, she had nothing to say. Her eyes were fixed on Emily, not with disapproval, but with something that looked almost like recognition. She saw how the guests approached Emily after the performance, genuinely congratulating her, treating her like a talented young lady. She saw how Jasper looked at Emily with pride and affection, and how Emily returned it with a pure and true friendship. And for the first time, Mrs. Whitmore began to understand that perhaps her son had found something more valuable than social status. Emily smiled at Jasper, her eyes shining with happiness. Jasper smiled back, knowing that this night marked not just the end of a year, but the beginning of a future where friendship and talent mattered more than prejudice. Music had won. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.